All right, we are back again to finish up this lesson. So let's look at example 9. Again, okay, you've got some techniques that you could use. One thing I want to say is you could have more than one way to get to your final version. Okay, so if you do one choice, maybe you're using the Pythagorean identity and your neighbor starts factoring. Okay, that may be okay. You might be able to go two different directions and still get to the same place at the end. Okay, again, the more of these you do and practice, the better you're going to be at seeing kind of like, looking sort of like two steps ahead to see if that's something I want to do or does that not end up being a good decision. Okay, so number 9. This one, I have the directions say factor to simplify. So that's kind of your hint on this one, that's the way you want to go. Now, at first, you might look at this one and say, oh, look, there's a 1 minus cosine squared. Well, I know that, I have this Pythagorean identity. And if I move the cosine over to the right side, I'd be subtracting that cosine squared from both sides. And I could end up with a sine squared theta equals 1 minus cosine squared theta. Okay, so somebody might try and say, hey, I think I want to make that substitution. So if we make that substitution, this is what you end up with. Okay, so at first it sounds like a good idea, but I get here and I'm like, okay, I don't have anything I can reduce, so nothing's going to cancel out, and I just really not sure what to do with that thing. All right, so you get into this position, you're like, oh, okay, maybe not such a good idea to try to make a substitution with that Pythagorean identity right now. So go back, try something different. Okay, so what we're going to do with this one is we're going to factor. All right, so let's take a little detour for a second. Y'all remember? X squared minus 9. If you factor this, you get x plus 3, x minus 3. It's difference of squares. Okay, so that one's everybody's like, yeah, I remember how to do that. Okay, this one gets a little trickier. What if you switch the terms around and make it 9 minus x squared? Well, this would be 3 minus x, and it would be 3 plus x. Okay? All right, so that looks a little unusual to us. We're not real comfortable with that. Okay, look at this 1 minus cosine squared. This is a difference of squares pattern. So, difference of squares, I'll show you how it factors. Okay, this is going to factor to 1, oops, I need my pencil back. 1 minus cosine squared x, oops, sorry, not squared, take that back. 1 minus cosine x times 1 plus cosine x. Okay, so if you want to, we can distribute, we can FOIL that, put it together, and you'll see how this works. So I'll do that real quick just to kind of show you that it really does factor like that. So my firsts is 1, outsides plus cosine x, insides minus cosine x, last minus cosine squared x. Plus cosine x minus cosine x cancel out, and then there's your 1 minus cosine squared. Okay, so it really does factor like that. So if we go back to our statement right here, look at the denominator, 1 minus cosine x. So you get to, this is a whole factor, this 1 minus cosine x. So you can reduce out those 1 minus cosine x. You have 1 plus cosine x is simplified. Okay, let's go to number 10. Okay, fractions. One option is add them together. So in order to do that, I'm going to need to get common denominators. Okay, so let's just do, kind of go back to 5th grade. I have 1/2 plus 3/7 to get common denominators, I'm going to have to think about what their least common multiple is. So on this one, I'm going to need a 7/7. I'm going to make 14. Okay, so I need a 7/7. This one needs a 2/2. Okay, now they match, and I can add them together. Okay, so we need to do the same thing, but we're going to be using these trig statements to do so. All right, so 1 plus sine theta, 1 minus sine theta. So if I want these to have the same denominators, I'm going to have to multiply by 1 minus sine theta. So 1 minus sine theta. And this one's going to need to be multiplied by 1 plus sine theta. 1 plus sine theta. Okay, so this fraction, 1 minus sine theta over 1 minus sine theta times 1 plus sine theta. Okay, second fraction, 1 plus sine theta over 1 minus sine theta times 1 plus sine theta. Okay, they now have the same denominator. Okay, if we go back to what we just talked about with the difference of squares, I want to multiply together this denominator for you so you can see what happens to it. Okay, so if you go 1 minus sine theta times 1 plus sine theta. Okay, FOIL. So firsts, 1, outsides, plus sine theta, insides, minus sine theta, last, minus sine squared theta. Cancel, cancel. You get 1 minus sine squared theta. Okay, so that's what's going to happen to your denominator. So we're going to have one big fraction. It's going to be 1 minus sine squared theta is in the denominator. Okay, look at your numerator. You have 1 minus sine theta plus 1 plus sine theta. Okay, well, minus sine theta plus sine theta cancels out. Okay, you now have 1 plus 1 is 2 over 1 minus sine squared theta. Okay, is there anything I can do with that? Well, hopefully you're thinking Pythagorean identity. Okay, your sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. So 1 minus sine squared, well, if I subtract sine squared from both sides, okay, cancels there, and I get cosine squared theta equals 1 minus sine squared theta. So I can make this substitution. Okay, I could make this substitution of cosine squared for that denominator. Okay, so this is going to become 2 over cosine squared. Okay, well, what's the reciprocal of cosine squared? Secant. So this would be 2 secant squared theta. And that would be your simplified version. Okay. All right. Hopefully you're not feeling too overwhelmed at the moment. Like I said, it just takes patience. You may have to try something. It may be the wrong thing to do. And so then you're going to have to back up and then try something different. Okay. The other thing is when you start getting frustrated with it, put it away, go do something else, and then come back later and look at it again. Okay. There's a good chance that when you come back later, you're going to see something that you didn't notice the first time when you were working on it. Okay, so be patient with yourself as you're trying to learn how to do this. Okay, so the more you practice, the better you get. Just chip away at it a little bit at a time. Okay, all right.